Welcome to 12th DTV. My name is Brother Kwame Dow, 34th District Representative of the massive and progressive 12th District of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Today, we've got a great roundtable planned for you with some outstanding leaders in Northern California, specifically in the Bay Area. Over the past few years, I've taken note about what's been going on up in the Bay and in terms of leadership up there. When I look at Mayor London Breed in San Francisco, Libby Schaaf, Mayor of Oakland, both women, and not to mention the panelists that we've got tonight of African-American men, who all happen to be Omega men, I can't help but ask myself if the Bay Area is the most liberal place in America. Maybe so. We have been seeing the outstanding work that the men of Omega have been doing up in the Bay. And we've got a saying that we say whenever brothers are doing outstanding work, that this is Omega. And this panel tonight is definitely Omega. So let's go. All right. First, let me introduce Brother DJ Brookter. He's Executive Director and San Francisco Police Commissioner. He attended the University of Utah as an undergraduate and University of Phoenix as a grad. Brother Brookter, welcome aboard. Next up, Brother Dr. Joe Marshall, Executive Director of Alive Free, and also recently appointed Commissioner of Social Status of Black Men. This was established by Speaker Pelosi in 2020. He's a graduate of the University of San Francisco. All right, Brother Marshall. Next up, San Francisco Police Chief, Chief Scott. He's obviously Chief of Police, in the city of San Francisco, and graduate of the University of Alabama, Chief Scott. And last but certainly not least, the San Francisco Board President, Brother Shamann Walton, graduate of Morris Brown College. Brother Walton, welcome aboard. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us this evening for this roundtable discussion. Let me go ahead and kick it off. I've given your titles, but talk to me a little bit about your role and specifically how you see your role in the community up there in San Francisco, in the Bay Area. Let's start with you, Chief Scott.
Thank you, Brother D.R. Dow. Well, I'm the Chief of Police of the San Francisco Police Department. And my role, number one, is to make sure our police department is providing public safety to the people of San Francisco. And it's a lot more complicated than that because we have to do this in a way and do our jobs in a way that we reverse a lot of the harm that has been done over the history of our country in the African American community. And I know we'll probably get the opportunity, I hope, to talk in more detail about what that means. But basically, the short of it is, I don't think any other profession has impacted the African American community like policing and law enforcement. And when you look at the disparities across this country, when you look at the devastation of the families that are impacted by law enforcement, men in jail, Black men in jail, people getting injured and killed by police officers, we got a lot of work to do. And my role is to make that situation better as much as I can do that, and I do it with the help of the men on this panel.
Perfect. Brother Marshall, same question.
Well, I would describe myself as a youth advocate. Have been pretty much my whole life. Started in college, continues now. I serve the community. In that capacity, I've been able to move into other areas. I actually served on a police commission prior to DJ. I think I was, when I moved on, active in suggesting that he be the one to replace me. This work has led me to this recent appointment by Nancy Pelosi to serve on the commission, nationally formed commission, Congressional Commission for the Status of African American Men and Boys. I'm deeply honored that she suggested she picked me, because she could have picked anybody, I found out, in the country. But there's an interplay in here that I don't know we'll be able to answer, I may talk about, but the four of us are very close. And not only are we close, we have been instrumental in helping each other in the positions that we are now. And maybe that story can come out, because not just that we're in positions of leadership, it's that Omega men have helped move other Omega men into these positions.
Great, thank you, Brother Marshall. Brother Brookter.
Yes, thank you, Brother D.R. Dow. Much like all of these gentlemen, I think just being able to see these gentlemen build bridges and then be able to walk across that bridge. I think Brother Scott and I are probably the less senior brothers. We're both Sands, spring 2013. But just the work that Supervisor Walton has been able to do. He was actually executive director of Young Community Developers before I was. Dr. Marshall served on the police commission before I did. So I've had examples of men within the community that exemplify exactly what it is that I'm supposed to do and what I'm supposed to uphold. So in my role, uplifting the community, being a steward of the community, ensuring that our community has everything that it needs in order for us to not just thrive, but to continue to move forward. And then also with my police commission hat, being able to have a voice that speaks for our African-American communities, working alongside the chief to provide legislation and policy, looking at Department General orders, ensuring that reform is really taking place, especially within our communities, I think is really my role here in San Francisco.
Awesome, thank you. And Mr. President.
Thank you so much, Brother DR. And I just again want to thank you so much for having this conversation this evening. I think it's important. Technically, my role is to pass laws and develop policy for the city and county of San Francisco, but more importantly, is to pass laws that create equity, address social justice, issues like racism and classism and sexism and homophobia and things that not only create division, but also create hate. And so being in a position to address the needs of community and make sure that we can create laws and policy that are equitable is a big part of the role that I play. Technically, I also have the opportunity to weigh in on the budget and make sure that resources get to the communities that need them the most as we address all the fiscal needs here in the city and county of San Francisco. And more personal for me is to serve as a vessel to my community and make sure that the people who are coming behind me have opportunities to be successful, especially the young people that look like me. And just like Fillmore Graham, show people the way so they can see it. And if they see it, they can achieve it. And like Dr. Marshall always says, the more we know, the more we owe.
Nice, nice. It's interesting that you touch on that, being able to see it before, as well as the mentors, your mentor, Brother Fillmore Graham. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go down the program. But I think it's important from a visual standpoint for people to see, just what we're seeing on the screen tonight. For African-American men who have achieved a level of success in areas that people may have thought that they never would have. So when I think about this discussion tonight, and certainly we're in the middle of Black History Month, and with all the Black or African-Americans who came, before you, who've done this role. Brother Marshall mentioned he was in the role prior to DJ. I'm going to go to you, Brother Marshall, first on this and talk about your appointment to Speaker Pelosi's appointment that she's given you, understanding that it's about African-American men and boys. So it would go without saying that you'd probably want a Black person on that committee, but I'm sure you all have heard that they also thought about Julia Roberts playing Harriet Tubman at one point. So I suppose it's not necessarily a given. But with that said, talk a little bit about the historical significance of someone who looks like you really being in this role. Let's start with you, Brother Marshall.
Look, my whole life has been dedicated to the work that I do here. And I gotta say that probably the biggest influences in my life are my history and culture and my fraternity. And for me, being the elder statesman here, they both happened at the same time. And I don't want to date myself, but I am a product of the revolution. And so about the age that I, became an Omega, I was also the first president of the BSU at USF. And those two influences basically honed my life's work, and I became a teacher and administrator. So I've always felt that, I wanted to create, my job was really to create shamans and DJs and chiefs. I mean, that was what I wanted to do. And it's been a blessing to be able to do that and to be successful at it. Fillmore Graham basically, gave me a blessing to start a live and free Omega Boys Club in the Bay Area. And a side note, he actually sent Shamann to me when he was a young man. And he was, we were able to get him started on his journey, send him to Morris Brown, get him that, that degree, and then that moved him further. So this position right now in the commission is really a culmination of my life's work. And I think for all of us, the one thing you're going to want to hear is that we actually love what we do. Yeah. It's not just a matter of being in these positions. You're going to hear from Chief Scott, myself, we love what we do. We're passionate about it. And we support each other and are connected to it. And I'm really, there's never been a commission like this. This is a time of social justice. The Biden administration has decided it wants to try and do something. Whether they will or not, I'll find out quickly. But to be able to weigh in at the national level and make suggestions about the improving conditions for our young men is, I'm very grateful. And I can't wait till I see Nancy because she's getting a big hug.
All right, so it's safe to say you're not the Julia Roberts of the commission there. Brother Walton.
Thank you so much again, Brother DR. And, for me, obviously, one point of historical significance is the fact that I am the first Black man that has been elected as the president of the Board of Supervisors here in San Francisco. We've had several women serve in that capacity. And I think it is special and a big deal because we are less than 5% of the population. But I think it's more important to note and more important to have a discussion about the fact that if I'm the last, then I've made a big mistake and I haven't fulfilled what my role is in community, because we are focused on making sure that we build bridges so others can come behind us. And as the first Black male in this role, I have to do everything I can to make sure that there's an opportunity for someone else that looks like me to be able to serve and do the same thing. Again, otherwise I'm not following through with how I was taught in the tenets of uplift and what we believe. And if you look behind me and you see this picture by Gilbert Young with the 3 words, "He ain't heavy," it's the epitome of uplift. And so I got to continue to make sure that I provide that opportunity for what ones that come behind me.
Thank you, Brother Walton. Chief Scott, same question to you, the historical significance of you being in your role.
Well, I think it's huge in terms of me being able to be the chief of police of a major city in this country. Not only a major city, but mind you, with the panel that you see, a city with an African-American population of less than 4%. And you have president of the Board of Supervisors, you have a police commissioner, you have Dr. Marshall, who was a police commissioner and influential at USF and other places, now has a national platform. And then you have me as the chief of police. It's a huge responsibility, Brother DR Dow, and I don't take it lightly. Like I said, I think law enforcement and policing in particular has impacted, Black people in this country probably more than any other profession. And it gives me an opportunity to do my part to try to make things better. And I'm just one man, but definitely I think I have a lot of influence and a lot of opportunity, and gives me the opportunity also to work with men like President Walton, who I know has a like mind when it comes to these issues, and Commissioner Brookter. So it's not, it's a huge responsibility. When I'm done with this work, I hope that I can have made a difference and will continue to make a difference even after I'm done. But I know just from what has been done since I got here, that we're making a difference. We collectively, not just me, we collectively. And I just want to say, I don't think Brother Marshall knew I was one of the brothers when he was on the commission when I first met him, but he was one of the commissioners that brought me here. So, being in a position to make a difference, because if he wasn't on that panel,
Right.
I may have been here anyway.
Right.
But the fact is, he was on the panel and he had a voice,
Sure.
and that's how we have to
But
uplift.
I never told you this. I actually went back there and told him, if you don't pick him, you're catching hell from me. I already so that's a secret. But being in that position, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Pick that man. He's the one.
Well, I love it. One of the things, and Commissioner Brookter, I'm going to come to you next. But one of the things that I'm seeing as a consistent theme of this conversation is the desire to uplift and make sure that you're not the last person who is in the role that you occupy, right? So if you're the first, well, that's great, right? But the real secret sauce is making sure that you're not the last. So Commissioner Brookter, again, as you followed, Brother Marshall, talk to us a little bit about the historical significance of you being in this role.
Absolutely. Thanks again, brother Dow, brother DR. I think one of the things that you're hearing from every single person on this panel, I think it's safe to say that we're all selfless men. And as I think about the historical significance, brother DR, I'm gonna kind of take it back. And I just had a conversation with some folks the other day. I was on a panel and having a discussion and got very enthusiastic and very passionate about it. But they were just asking me about my role and the work that I'm doing in community, and if we're sleeping and are you eating and taking care of yourself. And one of the things I went back to, brother DR, is I said that being a Black man in America and everything that I've gone through in my life has prepared me for this very moment in 2021, going through a pandemic. When folks were scrambling, I thought about losing my mother when I was 16. When folks were losing their heads about them, I thought about being arrested twice. And so it's being in these roles to be the executive director of an organization that has over 125 individuals, where 97% of them are people of color, in a community that probably has the largest percentage of African Americans left in San Francisco. I was supposed to be in this role. And when I think about the police commission and then looking at everything that's going on across the nation with George Floyd, and the conversations I've had with Dr. Marshall and the conversations I've had with Chief Scott while being on the board, lets me know that I am exactly where I am supposed to be. When they talk about building those bridges, I get to have ample conversations with each of these men, and it's just ongoing. And I also understand that it's on me to continue to make sure that we carry that torch to give it back to those young folk that are kind of coming behind us. So in terms of the historical, factors, again, brother DR, I just think everything that I've been through in my life has prepared me to be in this space and in this place for our community, for the police department and the commission, and for this work that we continue to need to do.
Yeah, look, DJ, and for those who are watching tonight, you'll probably say to yourself, all right, well, these guys are fairly comfortable with each other. They're calling each other by their first names or what have you. We're all really, truly friends. So we've known each other for years, and we've all watched each other grow. And quite frankly, and you guys know this because I say it all the time, you guys are inspirations to me. I'm always excited whenever my friends are winning. It inspires me, and I'm so proud of the work that you guys are doing. So I will come back to that question about the most liberal city in America, because I do want to, or area in America, because I do want to hear that. But as we're having these conversations, hearing 4% of the population is Black, but as I'm looking at, again, this screen, it's really interesting. Have we really realized Martin Luther King's, dream, where it's not the color of your skin, but the content of your character? Maybe. Now, what advice, because Shamann, I heard you mention a little while ago, Fillmore Graham, what advice do you have for those who are coming after you, who aspire to be like you, in the roles that you're in? And maybe in answering this question, maybe if you guys can each one of you talk a little bit about the person or the people who inspired you to get to the point that you're at today. Brother Walton, let's go ahead and start with you.
Well, first of all, I always do everything I can to remind folks that I would not be here if it wasn't for Fillmore Graham. If you look behind me, you also will see an image of him. He goes everywhere I go. And it was really just the fact that a lot of people were willing to give up on me. And he was someone who was determined, because he saw my potential, to make sure that he gave me that extra support. And it wasn't just for me, it was for several thousand young people that he spent the time and worked with. And like you heard from Dr. Marshall, working together with him to help him build the Omega Boys Club, which turned into Live and Free here in San Francisco. Phil Graham was truly selfless. His goal and his real focus was for young Black men to learn about education and opportunity to go to college. And the fact that he took me to a youth leadership conference in Atlanta, Georgia in the summer of '92, right after my last time serving in juvenile hall, when a lot of people told him, don't do it. But he was committed to making sure that I was successful. And I was just fortunate enough to be one of many folks whose life he's touched. And we became frat brothers and friends, and he was always a surrogate father. And so his example for me is just unmatched. And the two things I would say for those who want to follow in my footsteps or who want to achieve and whatever they want to do is, one, to never be content with average, because it's just as close to the bottom as it is to the top. To try to put it in perspective for some young folks, C is just as close to an F as it is to an A. So you always want to strive to do more, do better. And obviously this is not just academic, but you want to focus on doing as best as you can in life and strive to be above average. And the second thing, like Doc said earlier, is work to be able to be in a position to have a career, to have a job that you love to do. I can literally say the challenges that I deal with on a daily basis, the issues that I have to work on addressing, I love what I do. And so I am excited, happy coming to work every day, even with all of those major challenges. And if you love what you do, you truly, really are never working a day in your life. And I think that's important.
Absolutely. All right, DJ.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Brother Walton. You know, for me, Brother Dow, it was a real critical point in time in my life, you know, being a young Black man, growing up in a two-parent household. So I had my mother and my father in the household, but I'm absolutely okay, confident in my skin to share that I was a mama's boy growing up, Doc. I loved my mother thoroughly through and through. And when I was 16, she got sick and she was taken from this earth within 6 months. And so you talk about an extremely pivotal time in a young man's life. In high school, doing extremely well in sports, was doing semi-well with the academics, but losing that pillar within our family was just extremely, extremely crucial. But what I had to do was really pull myself up by the bootstraps. Thankful that my father was there and I still had my younger sister, and begin to just really think about what she had instilled in me as a young man. What were those core values that she taught me? What were some of those sayings and some of the things that she did that I need to continue to exemplify as I continue to live my life? And I'm happy to say, I was able to get a full ride scholarship to play football at Utah State University. And everywhere I went and everywhere I continue to go, she's with me. As Brother Walton shared, I have a whole wall here to my left, just kind of monumented to my mother. But I just think about how instrumental she was in terms of introducing our family to other families. I have a very small family, but such a much larger extended family, including Omega. But that was because of my mother, who was very outgoing, who was very talkative, was very influential. And she passed those things down to myself and my sister to be able to be in roles like this. When you talk to individuals and folks are telling you that, public speaking is one of the biggest fears, right next to death. I've been public speaking since I was in 6th grade. I hosted the talent show that we had, and I'm speaking to people, at all times. But those things came, from my mother, pushing us to always excel and to do more, and to always be kind as well too. Making sure that you're not burning bridges. And one of the things she did a phenomenal job of. I grew up in West Fresno, Brother Dow, which is much like Baby Hunters Point. It's like the south side of Chicago or parts of Alabama. It's Brother Scott, Fresno is a little gritty. So shout out to Kainu. But growing up there, I lived in West Fresno, but my mom was extremely instrumental in ensuring that we went to school on the north side of town, Doc. So I lived these two lives. One where it's drug deals. I'm seeing dog fights. The police are there every other day. But I went to school in an area where the majority of the folks didn't look like me, who were driving cars, who had 2 refrigerators in their household. They had video game rooms, and I'm sharing a room with my sister till I'm 11 years old. And my mother made sure we knew how to conversate with those folks, made sure we played sports with those folks and individuals so that we can maneuver through life. So I can sit in Fresno and have a conversation, or here in Bayview and talk to somebody who's been formerly incarcerated. But I can sit down and talk to Chief Scott. I can talk to Mayor Breed. I can talk to President Walton about legislation and policy that needs to change so that it can really affect that young person who's having some of those struggles and issues that I had when I was coming up. So for me, my mother was extremely, extremely instrumental, and so many other women and great mentors in my life, but she just always is in my heart, on my mind, and on my wall.
All right. And any advice you give to anyone who's looking to come follow in your footsteps?
Yeah, I think like Brother Walton said, I think it's not even, I tell young people, don't follow my footsteps, be better than me.
Yeah.
And I also tell them, I'll give them the blueprint. I'm always adverse to being able to sit down and have conversations and discussions. I always tell them as well too, networking is key. You just never know who you're going to be in a room with. You never know who you're going to have a conversation with. And that also goes back to something I got from Brother Walton, as just like my mother is always treat people kind, because you never know where people are going to end up.
That's right.
That's real key and real crucial. A conversation you can have as a young person in high school with someone like Chief Scott, you never know where that young person or Chief Scott's going to be at. So always make sure, that you're kind, that you are, that you do things better than I was able to do, and you can achieve anything. I think for me, being on this panel and being in the position that I am now, it wasn't something that I saw for myself.
Excellent. It's funny. I give people that advice as well, who say that they want to be like me. I said, no, don't be like me, because the bar is too low, right? I need you to be better than me, right?
That's right.
And I definitely want to give you everything that I can to make sure that you get there and beyond. So yeah, we're definitely on the same page with that, Commissioner. All right, with that said, let's go to Dr. Marshall.
It's interesting here because the figures that I mentioned before, history and culture, is used with me. And so I'm going to start with, the first book I read that really awakened this whole thing. And it's still the first book I give to anybody, is the Autobiography of Malcolm X. I cannot tell you how that forged and changed my life. And I was just a happy-go-lucky college kid, having a good time. I always tell the kids that if I hadn't read that book, I'd be living in the hills trying to get 3 BMWs, and I wouldn't be trying to put other people's kids through college. So you need to thank Malcolm. But that opened up a whole world for me. Growing up in South Central, it explained to me why, the conditions that I lived in. I had it explained to me why I got other Black boys had jumped me when I was 11 years old, and I had these traumatic experiences. And I'll tell you, brother, now, to be honest with you, I didn't even like brothers when I was growing up, because for me, every brother growing up in that town was either a threat, and I'm serious, a threat, I have 3 threats: white people, the police, and Black and other brothers. And the biggest threat for me personally was other brothers, and so I had this very negative view. I thought brothers, all they wanted to do was fight and beat you up, and they weren't serious students. And I was a good student, but I got clowned for being smart. So it wasn't until, and I want to say this, I read that book, but the other force that operated on me and led me to this and changed my narrative about Black men was pledging the fraternity. I can't tell you how much that had an impact on me. I had never seen, the first time I went to the frat house in San Jose, I pledged Xi Gamma, right? Can you still say pledge? Anyway, I pledged Xi Gamma. I went down there, I walked in the room, and man, I saw these brothers, educated, going somewhere. And that had a huge impact. And the way we worked together during our pledge process told me, oh man, we cool. We can help each other. We can move forward. We can do all of that. Between that and my BSU experience, it led me to new what I want to do. So I always give a lot of credit to the fraternity for planting this thing in me, for not having a negative view of Black men. And it's funny, you're gonna hear Fillmore's name a lot here. When I was pledging, I met this guy who was 9 years older than me, and I thought he was the biggest. I never seen a man like that. Fillmore Graham was a tower of a man.
Yeah.
And you know, he's just somebody that left an impression on you. And you don't know the impression that you're leaving on somebody else. You really don't know the impression that you're leaving on somebody else just by being a good man. Since we're talking men here, a good person, a good, honest person of integrity. And that's the way Fillmore was, being selfless. And to be around other people like that, it rubs off on you. And so, you know, when he started, you know, the Continental Omega Boys Club, I would go over there and do things with him. And then, you know, he said, one day I said, I'm going to do this. I'm waiting for you to do this. And the handoff, this is a marathon relay race. That's my description for freedom, justice, and equality.
Nice, nice. Okay.
A marathon relay race. And, you know, marathon's a long race, right? And throughout our history, all of our people, from the first slave that ran away, have been involved in this marathon relay race. The key here is to prepare others so that they'll be ready to accept the baton. And my fear has always been with, and the fear has not been, and actually hasn't happened, but you can see I'm the elder here, obviously, and look at the connections we've developed here, is that DJ and Shamann and the chief, obviously, were ready to take the baton.
Yeah.
And you know, and if the baton is dropped, what happens in the relay race? How many times we've seen the U.S. Olympic team get disqualified?
That's
We
right.
cannot be disqualified. And by our actions, everything we do prepares others to carry this baton, because, you know, the stuff we up against ain't going away. Don't even get me started on that. It's not going away. But resistance, I'm reading this book right now called Cask. By the way, if you hadn't read that book, read the book. It's fabulous, by Isabel Wilkerson. What we're up against is resistant and stubborn. And what I see with DJ and Shamann and the chief is a little bit younger than me, is that, you know, they were prepared to take the baton. My suggestion to people, I don't want people to do what I do. I want you to do what you're passionate with. Everybody's not good at everything. I could not do what Shamann does. I told him a lot of times, bro, I ain't doing that, okay? But I am doing this. And together, it's like a team. There's first base, second base, third base, you know, all like baseball, or a point guard. Basketball's positionless now. But we work like this. You know, we're all good at what we do, and we support each other. And when you're in the business that we're in, of helping people, you know, we have to help each other, you know, and we have to support each other. And sometimes we got to have hard talks with each other and not be afraid to do that. Because, and I will say this now, I'll turn it over to you. I've seen people lose their way. I don't know if you know what I mean by that. They go in this way, and then something happens. What's that? Absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? And you got to pull people's coattails sometimes and have an argument, whether they like it or not, and say, you know, then people tell me, Phil wants to say, Doc, you really thinking about, but that support is invaluable to keep us, because the forces arrayed against Shamann and DJ and the chief are enormous. They want to see you fail. And I'm not saying, maybe think I'm being harsh. They don't really care to me if we fail, right? So we have to keep each other so that we can support each other. And you'll know this phrase very well, see it through.
That's right. That's right. Well, look, I'll tell you, this space here is a safe space. You know, we are talking to people who look like us. So we want to be frank. All right. We don't want to pull punches. You know, when I hear you talk about, you know, well, they picked on me because I was smart, or I wanted to do my work, or I spoke a certain way. All right. Well, I'm sure everybody here can probably raise their hand as it relates to that at some point in their journey. And we have to make sure that we're giving those people who are going to carry the baton or take that baton after us all that they need to combat some of the things that they're going to feel along the way. You know, one of the questions I'm going to come back to after Chief Scott gives his answer about his inspiration, as well as advice for people coming after him is I really want to get a sense of, I'm sure you all had people who said you couldn't do it. You couldn't do it particularly because you had to stumble along the way. And I want to come back to that question before I tie it up at the end with the liberalist area in the country. I want to go to that question as well, because I think it's important for young people to know that because they've made one mistake or two mistakes or three mistakes, shucks, I see some people who don't look like us. They get a half a dozen mistakes and more, and still are able to be successful. So we'll come to that question. But Chief Scott, I want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about your inspiration, as well as really what advice you would have for somebody coming after you who, like DJ and myself, say is going to be better than you.
Absolutely, Brother DR. My mom, my mother. And I know, like DJ, you know, my dad died when I was 5, got killed. And, you know, my mom had 3 children besides me. Here's a Black woman in the deep South, raised in a family without a man. And it wasn't easy. You know, my mom had to drop out of high school when she like DJ, she lost her mom as a teenager, had to drop out of high school to work. And she eventually went back and got her high school diploma, and really couldn't go to college until she was in her 40s. And, you know, that was a junior college. So she had every reason in the world to complain and to say it's their fault that I can't do whatever. She never did that. And there was always this inner strength in her, not arrogant and boisterous, but always this, I'll show you because I'm going to do it, regardless of what you think of me. And I think, I know I inherited that. You know, I'm not a loud person. I don't brag, but I've always had this inner strength and this I'm going to do what it is that I'm going to do, regardless of what you think. So that came from my mom. And like I said, she could have complained. She didn't. I never heard her complain, never heard her just like roll up your sleeves and get to work. And the other thing with my mom, she held all of us accountable. But, you know, I grew up with whoopings. I grew up being held accountable. So I really appreciate that in her, because when you love somebody, as Dr. Marshall just said, you know, you're going to hold them accountable so they can be at their best. And, you know, I got to say, with the brothers on this call, we've all had, you know, those type of discussions, and they hold me accountable, and I hope vice versa, because I'm going to tell them not, you know, what they need to hear or want to hear, but what I think is going to help them.
Sure.
And that's accountability. And that's what this fraternity does. And I appreciate that from this fraternity. Nobody's shy about telling people what they need to hear, what they have to hear. And my mom didn't shy away from that. So that got instilled in me at an early age, but also gave me a thick skin. I'm not afraid of accountability. I'm not afraid, you know, if I make a mistake, like you said, you got to roll up your sleeves and suck it up and keep going. So, you know, my mom was my inspiration. She ended up sending 4 kids to college, buying a house, going back to school, owning her own business, and she could have stopped. She could have stayed in the projects. My mom was in the projects, you know. And I don't. Hey, there's never a knock for me on anybody who is in a situation where they need help, because she needed help, but she used that to get better.
Sure.
So, you know, my mom was my inspiration, and like I said, I probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for what she taught me growing up.
Sure. And anything, any nuggets you give somebody who wants to be like you, wants to be the chief of police of the city of San Francisco? I mean, not right now, though. I mean, down the line.
No.
Oh, no, we ain't letting him go nowhere. No.
Two things. Set your sights on what you want, and don't let anybody tell you what you can't do. And the second thing is stay within yourself. You know, Dr. Marshall, sage advice right on point about don't lose your way, you know. And there's been people all through my 31 plus years, well, you know, you don't have enough of this, you're not mean enough, you're not this, you're not that. I haven't changed. I don't care what level of, you know, height I go in my profession, I haven't changed. I stay grounded, because that's what I learned growing up. and I'm gonna stay within myself. I'm going. You know what I'm saying? Dance with who brought you. I know what got me here, and I'm not going to change it now because I got this, responsibility in this position. I'm still the same person, So I stay within yourself, but don't let anybody tell you what you can't do.
Perfect.
I put in the work. You
Perfect.
got to put in the work too.
So just add, I would add, and he's saying the same. Stay humble. When you start to get a big head, you're gonna mess up. You're gonna lose it. And I will say this about the chief. The chief is what you see is what he is. He is incredible in this job. To me, he's the best chief we've ever had. And that's plenty. I've seen, when I was on the commission, we had 6 chiefs in 14 years, right? He is easily, by far, the best police chief in the history of this city. As far as I'm concerned, having served on national scene chiefs from other places, he's the best, period. And he's the best because he is grounded and he is humble. And they can't mess with that. I want to tell you that. They cannot mess with this man.
Brother Marshall, you were actually reading my mind, because I was going to ask you what makes him the best chief. And it's what you've been consistently saying, what I've been hearing from everybody tonight, right? Is do the work, stay focused, stay humble, right? Make sure you're accountable to the people who brought you there, right? Absolutely fantastic. Let me just get one last question in, and then I'll give you an opportunity to kind of wrap, and we'll wrap up the conversation for tonight. But I'll tell you, brothers, this has been absolutely awesome. So tell me a little bit about, again, I kind of teed it up for you guys a moment ago, in terms of being perfect. Because look, I'm an HR executive, and along the way, my parents always said that I have to be 10 times better than anybody who doesn't look like me. Don't use it as a crutch, but I want to make sure you understand the reality of what the situation is that you're in, right? So everything that I've done in my career, it's always been 10x. It's always been 10x, because I know that I'm judged by a different scale. So talk to me a little bit about having, stumbled in the past. The kids that are out there who maybe, have gotten into a little bit of trouble and think that they don't have a future similar to the futures or the present that you guys are in right now. So talk to me a little bit about that. DJ, let me come to you first.
Yeah, thank you, Brother DR. I think I equate that to when I was in high school and running track and fumbling coming out of those blocks, right? As Doc starts to kind of talk about, passing the baton. But I mean, man, I've been through so many trials and tribulations in my life. I've probably failed more than I've succeeded. I will start there and say that. And the thing about being able to fail and going through those trials and tribulations, I didn't have the best grades in high school. Like I said, I really had to turn things around that junior and senior year in order to get that full ride scholarship. I probably scored the lowest score I could have on the SAT, given the GPA that I had. I'll also share, when I was in college, I almost got kicked out my second year. I will never forget having to go into my college advisor's office and looking at him in the eyes, Dr. Marshall and Brother Scott, and he said, look, you get one more F, your father is going to have to pay back all the money we've spent on you to go to school. Exactly, Doc. Now, mind you, I told you I was a mama's boy growing up. There was no way I was going to call my father, Brother Scott, and be like, by the way, these last 2 years of school that they were paying for me to be here, and I wasn't going to class and doing what I was supposed to do, you got to pay it back. So I said, okay, we can't have that conversation. But I graduated undergrad with a 2.5 GPA. By the skin of my teeth, I had to pull myself up and say, you are going to get this done. And by the way, I was the first person in my family to go to college. And, it was those types of moments that I now just sit back and look at, and I can smile and laugh about, because as we were talking about earlier, Brother DR, it's like, had I had more knowledge about mentors and seeking people who had characteristics that I wanted and needed, and networking a lot more, I could have saved myself some of those trials and tribulations. But, all of those stumbling blocks have gotten me to where I'm at now. And then, not even to mention, once I graduated from college, I immediately went into corporate America. And that's a whole nother different beast. I worked for a Fortune 500 company for a year. I worked at Countrywide selling mortgages at the tail end of the mortgage crisis. So I'm 24 years old, underwriting loans for people who have subpar credit. And let me take a further step back. I didn't even know anything about credit. So here I am working for this corporation, getting folks loans who have bad credit. And I don't even know what credit is. I don't even know what my credit score is at the time. So you just talk about all these things that are out there in the world that I just had like no knowledge of or wherewithal of. But one of the things that I did is just continued to push forward. So I get back home to Fresno, start working for a nonprofit organization, go back to school to get a master's degree in business administration, where I actually ended up with a 3.7 because I had to pay for it myself. And I started 4 businesses at the time, Brother DR. So I was starting 4 businesses, working at a nonprofit and going to school full time. One of the things I always had was that insatiable curiosity and that hustle to just continue to persevere. There were all these negative things that have happened, but as Dr. Marshall always said, I was still alive and free.
Yeah.
So it was just keep going, keep going, keep going. And as you stumble out the blocks, you know, it's about correcting yourself, right? Especially with this marathon, you're going to stumble, you're going to trip. You may hit a shoelace. I've hit several shoelaces, but you have to keep persevering in order to see all of this through. And that's like the biggest story, Brother DR. I enjoy talking to especially young people that get to see us where they are. They see Chief Scott and say, that's the chief of police. That's where I want to be. But I was always told by my grandfather, the only career or job you have where you start off at the top is digging a hole. And I didn't want to be a hole digger. So I understood I had to climb that ladder, but to look for brothers like Brother Walton, who was instrumental, you know, for me in joining the fraternity. I mean, absolutely. I wouldn't be in the fraternity if it wasn't for Brother Walton. And it was something that he has always said to me. I'll never forget. We were driving and we had been working together. And this is always the thing too. Now we're just getting personal. You know, when folks think I've known Brother Walton for decades, right? Like you guys went to Morris Brown together, and I'm like,
right.
You're actually older than me, right? Shamann's older than me. Everybody thinks I look older. I just think I'm a little bit more wise, maybe. But you know, neither here nor there. Neither here nor there. But we were taking a trip, Brother DR, and you know, I've been working with Shamann for a couple of years, and you know, he asked me, he's like, "You ever thought about joining the fraternity?" I said, "For what?" I was like, "I played Division I college football. I have friends all over the nation. I'm a networking guy. This is what I do. This is how I do things." And I'll just never forget. He said, "It's not about what the fraternity can do for you, but what I think you can do for the fraternity." And then not only that, just to see all the like-minded brothers that were around him. We were running campaigns, but I'm digressing. But I see behind him, you know, the picture and the mantra that we always talk about. He's not heavy, and for him to take a chance on me, because I also share when I went to go work for Brother Walton, he actually was not going to give me the job. So you want to talk about persevering through something. I was actually working at YCD before Brother Walton got there. I left for a short stint, about 4 to 5 months. And I'll never forget, he brought me into his office to have a conversation just about getting to know who I was. We didn't know each other at the time, but he had assumed the position as the executive director. And he does like he does so well, Dr. Marshall and Brother Scott, you know, he's very coy. He'll sit you in the chair and begin to have a conversation with you. And you look up, Brother Dow, and it's like 2.5 hours later. And he says, "You want to come back and work at YCD?" And I said, "Oh, hell yeah. Get me out of this place that I'm in now. I will sign a contract. You need me to draw blood, Social Security? What do you need from me?" I was like, "I need to get out of here." And that was history. And that was just history.
Yeah, look, he certainly has a way of kind of reeling you in. Definitely reeling you in. Thanks for sharing. Brother Walton, let me come to you next.
Yeah, I think for me, the thing to share would be that your resume can change. And getting our young folks and folks coming behind us to understand that part. Before the age of 18, my resume would have read, you know, a little bit like this: single parent household, expelled from Unified School District 3 separate times, incarcerated several times as a juvenile, 2 children before the age of 18, and dozens of adults who had given up on me. And that looks like a resume of someone going straight from the school to prison pipeline. And that could have been me. But with all that said, I had a resilient mother. I obviously had a mentor that we have all discussed that played a major role in exposing me to something that was different. And that exposure piece is so important. In fact, that youth leadership conference that I brought up earlier actually saved my life and changed my life. People talked about college. People talked about historically Black colleges and universities. People talked about communities where people who looked like us were thriving, working together. There were no drama and no issues, but I had never seen that. And once I saw that, it changed my life drastically. But I also knew, and most importantly, that God had a plan for me. Always had a relationship with God, regardless of the mistakes I made. I was into the word and paid attention to if every time I made a mistake, something helped me overcome it. And I know it was the higher power. And once I learned that the hard way is exactly that, it's the hard way. But once I learned that, I adjusted my focus. And I always worked hard, but learned to work hard on things that wouldn't lead me to danger, as we talk about all the time, Dr. Marshall, and persevered in areas that would help me realize my potential. And that really changed my life completely. But people have to know that their resume can change. You're gonna make mistakes. And I think to your point, Brother DR, it's not about using it as a crutch. I'm definitely not saying make the mistakes that I made and have to learn the lessons the way that I learned them, because in fact, there's so many setbacks and so many different things I had to endure, even with a college degree, because of some of my life choices at an early age. But I am saying that with all of that, never give up on yourself, because you can overcome some severe obstacles that, quite frankly, most folks can't. And if you are working through your issues and if you persevere, then you can achieve anything you want, regardless of background, circumstances. But it does take work. And I'm not going to act like it's not easy, but your resume can change.
Awesome. Thank you. Chief Scott.
Yeah, the two questions you asked. First of all, about being perfect. I feel that pressure every day, and nobody's perfect. But the pressure of knowing that you may not get the second chance that others will get keeps you on your game. But you can't be so cautious that you're afraid to make a mistake, because look, the bottom line is we get these positions of responsibility and this tremendous responsibility. And sometimes you got to lay it all out there, and you got to take the risk of, you may make a decision that somebody may not like, but if it's the right thing to do, you got to do it and roll the dice and feel good about it. And I know the brothers on this call do that all the time. And that has less to do about being perfect and more to do with about being thoughtful and being courageous in how you approach your job. Because I think we've all probably been there, where you can be safe and be cautious. And I don't want to piss nobody off. I don't, so I'm just going to kind of not take a position on this. We can't do that, because these issues are too important, and we have to take positions, and some of those positions aren't popular. Look, Brother Brookter, Commissioner Brookter, put a resolution in front of the police commission to put Black Lives Matter signs in all the police stations. I jumped on it. I think we're the only police department in this country that has done that. And wow. It came with a lot of criticism.
Sure.
It came with I was getting hate mail from some of these folks in the Midwest, and emails, and somebody sent me a little package that reminded me of who I was and all that, and I kindly sent it back. But what I'm saying is that takes courage.
Well, and also I think it speaks to not losing your way, right? You came in with the intention of doing a job, and no matter how much pressure it was on you to do the safe thing wasn't your way. So you didn't want to lose your way. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but
absolutely. I mean, you captured that exactly. So and I don't want to get too long-winded on that, but I think being perfect has to be balanced with what that really means. And being perfect doesn't mean don't make the hard decision, because you might be wrong.
Sure.
You got to have the courage to lay it all on the line. So, yeah, I think we all think that way. I've been around all of you for long enough to see how you operate, and we all think that way because we have to stay on top of our game, but we also have to make some tough decisions. And it ain't about you might be wrong. The other thing is, in terms of adversity and perseverance and working through things, like Brother Brookter, I got to college and made some stupid mistakes. Probably been in the frat 25 years earlier had I not done that. But like Brother Brookter, I got that call to the counsel's office as well. Academic probation, you're gonna be out of here if you don't turn your act around. And I didn't pull my GPA up quite as high as he did, but I pulled it up and I didn't quit. So the thing is, there were times where I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give up and go to the army like my dad did. Because my dad, who was a member of this fraternity, died at a young age, and he never finished college. He never finished college. He quit school because of some adversities that he ran into. And you're talking about a man who went to high school at age 15. Really smart man.
Right.
Never made it through. So that kind of resonated with me as well, because I didn't get to spend many years with my father, but that kind of resonated with me because everybody I talked to knew him. Hey, your dad was brilliant, but he never finished college. Now I know you're talking about a black man in the 40s. So whole different environment. And
Sure.
he ended up working as a railroad reporter and then going to the army. But the point is, I don't want to waste the talent that God gave me. I think I got a brain between my ears and I don't want to waste it. So I hung in there and I graduated, and I was able to do something with it. So you can never give up.
Awesome. And Dr. Marshall.
First of all, for me, I just love being Black. Let me just say that. You have no idea. I loved it. And I am not even angry about the burden placed on Black people in this world. I'm not angry about it. I've accepted it. But I've also said, I ain't gonna let them win. I got the heritage mentality. They ain't beating me. I mean, it's the same mentality you have when you're on a basketball court or on a football field. You playing one-on-one. I'm playing one-on-one with a society that's trying to keep me down, and I ain't losing. That's just I've always felt that way. As for perfection, nobody's perfect. And everybody makes mistakes.
Yeah.
Everybody. There's a scene in Roots, and we show this scene to the kids all the time when they first come and meet us, where the father gives the boy some chores. He's actually supposed to watch the goat, right? And this is an agrarian society, so watching the goat pregnant with twins is like, grandma telling you to go to buy the groceries and pay the rent. That's a big job. Right. And in the scene, he does, and it's funny, when I show this scene, he does exactly the same thing that young people do now. He's out kicking it with his homie, he's chilling, and the goat gets killed, right? So now he's like, I gotta go home and face my daddy, and he think his daddy gonna kill him. When he gets back home, his daddy does a wonderful lesson. As he's sitting there quaking in his, whatever, the father says, first he says, are you harmed? Now, a lot of kids don't hear that. Are you okay? And the second thing he says is all men make mistakes. And he shows him his mistake. Now, you know how powerful it is for your parents to say to you, you ain't the first that made a mistake, dude. He shows him, but then he says, I don't want you to make a mistake again because it might be your life. And then he tells him how not to make a mistake. For me, working with young people, I always saw something they didn't see. Fillmore saw something in Shamann that Shamann didn't see. And they would come to me, I'm a drug down, this, man, I don't see that. I don't know, I ain't what I see, I see something entirely different. And just that lens on them, really, you see that? They couldn't even believe I was saying it. Me, I've been this, no, ain't what I see, man, ain't what I see. And said, I'm no different, I'm no special than you. If anything I can do, you can do, right? And that whole question in seeing something in them and giving them the confidence to move forward and then showing them the way. See, when Fillmore took Shamann to the leadership conference, he began to show him the way.
Right.
He mapped out the yellow brick road for him. He showed him the way. And then he told him, Shamann, this is how you can get what you want, right? And so that's all, absolutely. Now you can't make anybody do anything, but you can show them. They got to make up their mind they want to do it. But your belief in them, your belief in, and you don't know when it's going to kick in. We have a saying: some get it right away, some get it sooner or later, some never get it. We don't know who's who, so we give it to everybody. I've spoken in jails, and they were like, "Man, that one thing you said, right? You know." So I give this to everybody. They make the choice. I always say we don't change people, but we set up the situation for change. We set it up so that it can happen. And one thing I always tell young people says, if you will and do right, people gonna help you. Seriously, you're gonna get help if you're doing right. Now, if you tell me something's always going wrong, you probably ain't doing right.
Right. Well, what's the thing that's consistent there, right? You know?
You're probably not doing right. I'll help you. DJ will help you. The chief will help you. Shamann will help you. All kind of people will help you if you are willing to do right. And God will help you. And if I can put that in there, right? God will help you. But you got to make a decision that you want to do right. And that comes from you.
All right.
But I've seen too many instances. I can start naming names of people who have run into tough situations and then move. Look, Malcolm X is my favorite one, right? My son is named Malcolm. That's the best way I can do it. But he made the decision. He wanted to change, but somebody guided him and saw something in him that he didn't see it himself.
Yeah, look, if you want to do right? If you want to do right, look, I give it to everybody. I'm a note taker, so as we've been going through this conversation, I've written a few things down. Give it to everyone. That's what we're doing tonight. We're giving it freely to everyone who's going to listen to this, right? Accountability, right? Making sure that you keep your way. You don't lose your way. Because a lot of times you get into these situations and you're overwhelmed by the responsibility, right? And the vision that you had going into it ultimately changes. So I want to thank you all so much for the nuggets that you shared this evening. And quite frankly, I want to thank you guys for being so vulnerable. There's a lot of conversations that I think people imagine that Black men don't have. But as I mentioned to you all before, we're all friends. So these are conversations we have on a regular basis. So you see how natural and easy it was because we know each other. And we want to make sure that we provide a venue for others to be able to share these types of conversations and ultimately to push our community forward. So I want to thank you all for your friendship. I want to thank you all for your leadership, for your commitment to the community, and most importantly, for your commitment to each other. Because you all are certainly focused on making sure that you're not the last ones to serve in your roles. And you want to make sure that you pave the way for all those who are going to come after you. So as we give it to everyone tonight, I want to thank you all so much for being part of this particular conversation. And when I say it, this definitely is Omega. So to our senior brother, brother Dr. Marshall Xi Gamma 67, thank you, my brother. All right.
Well, can I just say one thing before you go on?
Sure.
I got to shout out, we're all Omegas, but we're all in the same chapter. So I'm shouting out for Pi Chi chapter in the city. Look, 4 brothers like this in the same chapter. Somebody match that.
You know what? I think they call it Mighty Pi Chi, right?
That's right.
Well, I certainly understand why it's mighty now, right? So Xi Gamma 67, right? And then I got to go to Cold-Blooded Alpha Sig. 96, right? Mr. President, right? And one day it will be Mr. President in DC. No, don't shake your head. Look, I'm sending it, accept it, receive it, my brother. All right?
It's received, and I'm gonna focus on District 10.
All right, perfect. You do District 10 now, right? Pi Chi. 2013, Brother Brookter, thank you so much. I appreciate you, team. And of course, Untitled Chapter, 2013, Chief of Police, City of San Francisco, Bill Scott. My brothers, I love you. Thank you for your friendship. And please keep on doing what you're doing. Particularly on this Black History Month, we wanted to make sure that we highlighted you and the great work that you guys were doing. And it was rhetorical in the beginning, but I'm thinking that the Bay Area may be one of the most liberal places in America. No? All right.
Look, the Bay Area is more liberal than America is liberal because Barack Obama was elected president. In fact, that's why we're doing the work that we're doing, because it's not what it should be.
Well, there you go.
That's just me.
You heard it directly from Brother Marshall. All right. Thank you, my brothers. Peace.